It's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Glenn and his wife, Phyllis, to the show. So thank you guys for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you,
love it.
Corey, for having
This is
us.
exciting.
Love this kind of
And
work.
so
So
you
really
guys,
appreciate
from what I've learned of your work, you guys, I like the idea of the concept of the connection codes. And so
Mm,
let's jump into what is that really?
mm. The connection codes are the science-based, very research-backed, just the human condition, the human experience of how to connect deeply in relationship. It's the guide, the language, the tools, which were actually coded for. That's why it's called the connection codes, because we are designed for that from birth. We're faith-based. We believe
Okay.
God designed it, but even if there is no God, it's all evolutionary. It's still the human condition. So we are born seeking connection. We are born hardwired, set up to be able to connect with people. Somewhere along the way,
Mm-hmm.
for most of us, we get really knocked off course. And we, as babies, we present authentically, we present vulnerably, and then we get knocked off course. We end up reprogrammed, but we never end up recoded. We don't get recoded
Okay.
ever. And so we're just trying to get people back to their original coding to reactivate this for them. And it's remarkable how well it works whenever people are actually able to implement the tools. And that's the problem, is that people haven't had the right tools. They don't need better intentions.
Mm.
And we missed with each other for decades. Literally, just our marriage was, just the first 10 years was brutal. And it took us a long time. We were the slow kids in the group. But as we started learning these tools, again, we didn't need better intentions. That's what we always heard from marriage seminars,
Yeah.
marriage books. Well, you
Yeah.
need better intentions and you need more effort. You need to try harder. And we were like, we're trying our hardest. We're exhausted. And we didn't marry just, we
Exactly.
married because we intended to
Mhm.
be connected, and we got lost very, very early. And now we marvel, we're mesmerized by the power of this, because we remember the pain. We remember living in
Yeah.
disconnection and pain
Yeah.
continuously. And now we're raising our eyebrows continuously, like, dang, this is actually real. This is happening. It's just amazing. Blows our minds. Mm-hmm.
So much of this grew out of, our story, and we've been
Mm-hmm.
married 41 years. And as Glenn already said, the first 10 were brutal, but
Mm.
we didn't ever dream they would be. Like, we went into our marriage
Right.
having that list of that checklist. We did everything that we thought was
Yeah.
right. And had the stability of great jobs and all the things, and just a deep foundation in
Mm.
faith and our love for God and each other. So it was like we were shocked when things did not go well
Mm.
right
Right.
away. And it kind of, even from our honeymoon, it grew out of just pain that happened in our honeymoon. And so we were, though, committed to marriage. And so we didn't just walk away, but we stayed in this place of curiosity. Like, is this really
Mm.
what God intended for marriage? And just led us down the road of tons of questions and research. Glenn's the researcher. I just am like, give me the cliff notes. I'm that person. But it's been this lifetime of searching for
Yeah.
how people disconnect, which, if you turn it around, then it's how people connect. And that has been where our tools have grown out of all of that over the years.
So what are some of the main ways this happens then? I mean, because you're talking about it's not a recoding, but it's a conditioning based on experiences, because it makes sense, right? When we're newborn and growing up, we go
Mm-hmm.
after things because it's just innate,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
That
and that's part of the power of the connection codes, is it's already inside of you, which is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. There's so many programs that are introducing new ideas, new concepts. They're based on a theory, a philosophy, a neat idea. Somebody came up around a campfire or something. But this is actually already inside of you. You don't have to go learn Latin or memorize the periodic table to do this. It's already within you. So what we're trying to help people do is to relax into their authentic self, not learn a new plan, a new idea. It's already
right,
inside of them.
right.
And that's the reason they married, is because they wanted to connect authentically. They wanted to be able to be vulnerable and safe. They just don't know how to do that. And that's what we're all about, is giving them the tools to do that.
Well, for so long, we thought it was all about the
Mm,
logistics. If we could, what are the fights? Like, what is leading us to fight? And it's the
Hmm.
things, we kind of joke about it. I mean, comedians are great about talking about the toothpaste, how you squeeze the toothpaste can create
mm,
great fights. And so we, for many years, thought if we just get the logistics right,
mm,
Yeah.
and we will then thrive. And we did work on a lot of things that did bring more peace to our marriage, but we would still have conflicts that would keep us separated, just disconnection
right.
for, hours, days sometimes.
Yeah.
And for us, we had this moment that happened that we call the dishwasher story. It's in our book and in our master classes, where one day we had a similar thing that had happened many times before. I came into the kitchen ready to fix dinner, thought I had to unload the dishwasher. I opened it, it was already unloaded. Glenn comes into the kitchen and I say, "Babe, thanks for unloading the dishwasher." And he responded in the similar way that he had done many times before. He said, "Well, that's not the only thing I did today." And that response so often would lead to argument and
Mm.
fight.
Because
And
you would logically go, I didn't say it was the only thing you did today.
Right.
I just said,
Right.
thanks for doing the dishwasher. I'd go, well, I don't understand why you have to make such a big deal about it. It's just so silly. And we'd be off to the races. It was nasty.
yeah. And that particular day, instead of just rolling my eyes and turning my back to him, I actually turned to him. It's like the curiosity came
Mm,
out of me. And I thought, I need to go deeper in this.
mm,
And so for the first time, I said, "What do you hear me say? What happens for you when I say thank you for unloading the dishwasher?" And sadly, it's the first time that I actually had that
mm,
curiosity and went
Hmm.
towards him instead of just rolling my eyes and turning away from him. And what he said back to me was, for me, shocking.
mm.
And it changed in how I viewed him, and just the amount of compassion that came over me was quite large, actually.
Yeah, and you have to understand this was over 20 years
Mm.
into our
Oh,
relationship.
sure.
So we had wounded each other, pick a number, thousands of times, some paper
Mhm.
cuts, some deeper woundings. And what we didn't realize is I happen to live with one of the most productive people on the planet. She's perpetual motion. She gets more done in an hour than most people do in a day. She happens to live with a guy who's not quite so productive. He's a lot of fun to have around, but he struggles with tasks. So what I experienced when she said thanks for loading the dishwasher was that she was like announcing it to the universe or the internet or something like, "Whoa, it's a miracle. Glenn did something useful for a change. Let's have a party, throw some confetti." So my response was based on what I was experiencing, and she had no idea. She's literally thinking, I just said the 6 words that I said, thanks for loading the dishwasher.
Hmm.
She had no idea that was happening for me. So, and just for the record, I'm the educated one. Phyllis is the smart one. She's the one that actually figures things out that matter. And every benchmark in our relationship was from something that she did, realized. And in that moment, and again, this is after more than 2 decades, but in that moment, she was like, what the heck? What we've been doing doesn't work for 2 decades.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
let me try something different. And so she wanted to know what was happening with me, the message I heard. And then I told her
Mm.
that, well, obviously you're, trying to humiliate me, make fun of me, demean me, that, I'm not nearly as productive as you. I'm not as good as you, et cetera, et cetera. Well, she's just like stunned, like, wait, what? She had
Mhm.
no idea. This had nothing to
Right.
do with Phyllis, even though it looked like it was all about Phyllis. This is just what was happening inside of Glenn. But I would also say Glenn's not trying to experience that. I wasn't trying to feel put down. I wasn't trying to feel shame in that. I just did. And that was a
Right.
big turning point for us that led us to many years of trying to uncover what happens. But that was the beginning of a big, big shift in our relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. The shift was realizing there's emotion under it.
Mm,
And that's where we were missing each other. It wasn't the
Okay.
logistics of the dishwasher, it was the emotion under it. And so that was such a big turning point, because anytime Glenn reacted in a way that didn't quite seem normal to me, or it was confusing to me, instead of reacting to the situation, I began asking that same question: "Babe, what's happening with you?" And vice versa. And then it was like we started to learn
mm,
just the power of
yeah,
that deep emotional connection.
yeah.
And emotion was not something that we were taught. It was not, it was almost like I grew up in a home where tasks were what were expected and what were praised. And
Mm-hmm.
so at a very young age, I learned there is no space here. There's no tolerance here for emotion. And then the only emotion I ever saw in my family of origin was my brothers, who are all older than I, fighting. And so that to me was anger, and that was emotion. And so
Right.
that was no good. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I'm opting out. I would say that so often to Glenn, I opt out. I don't do emotion. And I did not understand the science behind emotion. I did not understand that your brain houses emotion and
Mm-hmm.
that we were created that way, and that it's the command center that we have to tune into. And, as we know now, the body keeps the score. So when you don't tune into your emotion and don't, in a healthy way, process them and communicate them, then your body is just simply storing them. And eventually your body goes, I'm tired of storing all of
Right.
this emotion. And we have a lot of other issues with our bodies because we're not connecting and tuning into each other on that level.
Yeah.
And so we're arguing and fighting over logistics. We're defending ourselves so often,
Right.
like, well, I didn't, if there's an argument of something that is said and done, it's like we jump in and try to defend. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't say that. I wasn't thinking that. And then the other person feels disregarded and never feels that we understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. We call it the court case. You can win the court case and lose the relationship. And what matters is the relationship. Because in that situation with the dishwasher, Phyllis was correct that she did not say that I'm a loser and a failure and pathetic. She didn't say any of that. She didn't even think that, believe it, anything.
Right.
So she could have proven in a court of law that she did not say that, didn't think it, didn't believe it, didn't feel it. And she would have won the court case, but she would have lost the relationship. And instead, in that moment, she thought, the relationship is what matters. So a little after that, Phyllis made me quit working, which astonishes me. A woman tells her husband, you have to stop working. I was a contractor at the time. She made me go back to school, which I was delighted to do. I love school. And that allowed me the freedom to start doing research, because I knew that 24 hours before our wedding, we were excited about happily ever after. And 48 hours after our wedding, we were like, what the heck did we just do? We just signed a 70-year contract, and we don't even know how long 70 years is. So I was like, I have to figure this out. This doesn't make sense. There's no way that these very intelligent people, talented, gifted, and they're idiots, they're morons, that something just got wrecked that they were so excited about. And of course, then we start seeing all around us, the same thing's happening for the vast majority of people around us. Nobody goes to their wedding thinking, yeah, this is going to really stink here in about 6 months, maybe 2 years. It's going to be blah and just awful, but I'm signing up. Every wedding I've ever been to, they're excited about, they found the love of their life. It's so beautiful, a once in a lifetime relationship. And then, as we know, the vast majority of relationships deteriorate usually pretty quickly. So I just started doing research, and I started with a blank sheet of paper, and I said, I want to watch these interactions and see where she loses him, where he loses her, where do they lose each other. They're not doing this on purpose. They're not doing it because, and we have all these labels, he's a narcissist, she's bipolar. I'm like, well, wait, that's the result. Let's find out what the cause is. Okay. And so we kept going backwards. Then I started discovering and researching a lot about emotion, and realizing, okay, humans connect through emotion, and then realizing humans connect through core emotions. All emotions are derived from the core emotions. And then realizing, again, this is step by step by step, but realizing, this is just brain chemistry. We don't vote on emotions. We don't opt. We don't plan our emotional day. Emotions actually happen to you. You're responsible for your next action. You're not responsible for, and people say all the time, I've been saying for centuries, you need to control your emotions. You can't control your emotions. There's no such thing. You can't control your behavior. I'm not allowed to go key your car because you said something where I felt hurt. I'm not allowed to burn your house down. That's my behavior. But I felt hurt. I just did. And Dr. Corey said something. I felt hurt. I did. And you can tell me to not feel hurt. And you can tell me to stop feeling hurt. And you can tell me to shut up about it. But that does not change the pain experience that I had. So when I started realizing that, I'm like, wait a minute, this is fundamental human condition. This is not optional. Then I started bringing this information home to my wife, who had built a phenomenal company and was running that. And she said, I don't have time for that. Don't bother me. I'll listen to your rambling, but that's not for me. I don't do emotions. And she said many, many times, you have enough emotion for both of us. So I don't have to do emotion. And she was a difficult case study, but I eventually convinced her that wasn't
Yeah.
true.
Well, and one of the tools that we have that we love to share is what we call the core emotion wheel. And it all goes back because for many of us, it's like, okay, so you're saying it's emotion, it's not the logistics. So how in the heck do we not weaponize emotion? How do we communicate in a healthy way? And the core emotion wheel, it's a 4-minute exercise, so 2 minutes each. And for many of us, we can agree with, the research that's now coming out all the time about emotion, but it still goes, okay, how can I do this in a reasonable amount of time? And that's where
Right.
it all started for us because I'm like, I don't have time. Give me cliff notes. Whatever you do, it's got to be fast for me. So the 4-minute tool is powerful in for yourself to tune in. So for me to ask myself, what's happening with me? And to look at all 8 of the emotions. So we have a part of our brain, there's 5 regions. We break one of the pain region into 3, which is sad, hurt, and lonely, because they fire so differently on a brain scan. And then the disgust region is guilt and shame, and they look different as well in just personal interaction. And so you get just 8 core emotions. And what's beautiful about that is it works in any language because in any language, people understand the word fear and the word anger. And, there's a few notes of there's secondary anger and primary anger. And so learning about each emotion is really helpful.
Yeah.
But part of it is just starting the journey of being able to identify what is happening with you every day. This is an exercise we encourage all couples to do every day because 4 minutes, you've got it. You've got 4 minutes to connect on that really deep level. We so often, right, in married life, especially if you have children, simply do through logistics. Where are you going? Here's where I'm going. Here's where the kids need to go. But when you get to this one tool, you're really deeply diving into the day that you've had. And that is super powerful. So we want to make sure before we run out of time today with you, Dr. Corey, that we have time to demonstrate
Sure. Go
this
for it.
tool. So I don't know if this is the moment that you
No,
want to dive into that.
you've teed it up well. So yes.
Yeah. And mention the download because
Yeah, we actually have a free download for your listeners, which also tells the rules and another video and instructions on how to use it. So simply go to connectioncodes.co/passionately married, and you will get that free download.
Perfect. And
So
I'll have that in the show notes. So if you
yeah,
missed it, then you can
that's
come back to it.
awesome. I love that. So,
So
Dr.
walk me
Corey?
through just real quick of the 8. So that way, if anybody's missed,
Okay.
what are the 8?
Yeah, I'll mention the 5 regions of the brain. Again, this is just science. It's anger, fear, pleasure, disgust, and pain. And then we divide pain into hurt, sad, lonely. We divide disgust into guilt and shame. So anger, fear, guilt, hurt, lonely, sad, shame, and joy.
Guilt. That was the one I missed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so frame it then for the people that are listening and watching. Is this something you guys have come up with that you recognize there's just tremendous benefit of carving out the time to do this because that's what creates the foundation repetitively of now I kind of know where you are. And so it's an intentional, hey, we haven't checked in. We haven't touched, we haven't done this connection yet today.
Yeah. Well, and the other problem is that people's emotional muscle has atrophied so much, they don't even recognize the core emotions. If you had said to me 30 years ago, Glenn, how much shame do you feel? I'd be like, none. I'm great. I'm awesome. I was drowning in shame and I had no idea that this was strangling me every minute of every day. So now I recognize it. I'm literally able to process it in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, which stuns me that this is even a thing. I didn't know that was possible. But that is the human condition. Research now tells us that humans don't experience an emotion for more than 19 seconds if it's not reactivated. That, again, we could talk for 45 minutes about that research, but that is phenomenal to think, wait, we're 19 seconds from changing the world. We're 19 seconds from helping these two who are lost from each other to find each other. 19 seconds, not a weekend retreat.
Right.
19, it blows my mind. And it's
Right.
actually quite true and accurate when people get good at this. So we're just helping them to exercise their emotional muscles so that they become tuned in. And then they're able, because that's what we do at birth. We just convey authentically all the time, 3:00 in the morning. We don't care. We're authentic. We're vulnerable all the time. Well, there's no birthday where that's supposed to change. That's the human condition. That's the human coding. That's how we're supposed to always operate.
And, just like in sharing the wheel just now, like I had a lot of sadness yesterday because my nephew passed away from cancer. And so when his birthdays come around, it's that day, right? It's the day. But if I don't share that with Glenn, then I may just be off all day. And if I don't even tune into that for myself, then I'm not even aware of why I'm off and irritable and may snap at him or be like, he shared the hurt that he felt yesterday with me. Well, if I'm not in tune with what's happening with me, then I'm kind of in a fog. And then he thinks it's all him.
Yep.
And that's how an argument can start. And it's like, wow, we're arguing over something so trivial, but really there's so much else under it. And so a tool like this is just a place to start. It's where you can learn to tune into yourself. What is happening with me? And also communicate it without it feeling like, without it being a weapon. It's like, oh, we're just going to start our day communicating like this. We're going to end our day communicating like this. And it is so powerful of a tool that also is incredible with your children. And as a family, you go, wow, now we really, because, your kids get off the bus and you're like, how was your day? Oh, great. But when you go, well, let's talk about this, and you bring the wheel out, all of a sudden you hear the moments they were lonely and the moments they were sad and maybe hurt by what someone said, things that they might not get to in the sharing, because we so often just talk about the logistics, how hot it was or how crowded the bus was. And so we don't get down to what is really the core, which is what's firing in our brain.
Yeah. And part of the power, Corey, is that, you say carve out the time. Connection coders say we brush our teeth every day. We do the core emotion wheel every day. It takes 4 stinking minutes. You'll get it down to 2.5, 3 minutes total for 2 people. So we brush our teeth every day. You just brush your teeth. I said that one time, and the guy goes, "You brush your teeth every day?" And I'm like, "Ooh." We have another discussion there, but anyway,
we need to meet via Zoom from here on out, right?
But it's just something you get in the habit of doing, and so now, literally, I mean, the connection code is spread over 60 nations now. So now there are people all over the world that's just how they function. They brush their teeth every day. They do the core motion wheel every day.
So because obviously that's one of those things that I think everybody, when they hear this, they're going to immediately go, oh, I can totally see the profoundness and the power of this. But inevitably, our human condition also dictates, I don't always do the things I know that are good for me.
Sure.
I don't always do the things that I know will help my marriage, because it's that idea of, well, no, I need them to lead it. I need that. So I'm curious, what do you guys keep coming across that make it to where, like you alluded to, the client that just finally after 2 years came on board, what are the things that we so often just, you hear this all the time, and then, it's just add that to the list of here's why I know it's good, but I'm not going to do it.
Well, I love that you brought, because we were actually talking about this in the car just earlier after he saw this client, because I get it. I'm a struggler. Like, I know that it's best if I walk every day outside, get fresh air. It's really like, I know that, but I struggle with making that happen. Where Glenn is the kind of guy, he commits, he's 5 miles a day kind of guy. He never misses a day. So there are people who just take to something. But what I said to him about this is, it saved my life. It saved our marriage. And it's a 4-minute tool. And once I saw that, because, fighting lasts hours sometimes. It dysregulates your nervous system sometimes for days. And so when you go, wait a minute, this is 4 minutes. Like, you go, it's more important than anything I do today is to connect with you for 4 minutes, because the other options that we go to in our relationships are so destructive. And, that's so much why people end up even in your office, Dr. Corey, just because it's like you get to a place where you're like, I can't even, we're so wounded by each other. We got to get outside help. And it's kind of like, okay, guys, let's start this much earlier. Even in teaching your children how to identify their emotion and how to communicate that. without it weaponizing. And you go, wow, if we can teach this to our kids, then they're going to be that next generation that actually are healthier than we ever
Yeah.
have been.
Yeah. And we
Mhm.
encourage people, people say, oh, I don't have time to do this. You don't have time to not do this.
Mm.
Phyllis and I wasted so much time. I mean,
Mm.
we're talking about hours, days, weeks being disconnected. And the research says people are operating on average about a 36% capacity. That's about a third. And I don't believe in 100%. Nobody's living 100% all the time. But if we could get people up to 70, 75, 80, 85, 90% of their capacity, oh my
Right.
goodness, everything changes. Literally, and most couples we work with will double their income within about a year and a half, because the power that I experience when I'm connected with this woman, I can
Mm.
do anything. I can achieve my goals. I can be successful. If I'm disconnected from her, just shoot me. I don't even care anymore. I'm
Yeah.
overwhelmed. And literally it's 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, well, I've got nothing done today. And that's because I'm so consumed with the pain that I experienced
Mm.
with her. Not because I'm bad. I'm just human. That's what happens. It's the
Mhm.
same. It's the equivalent of if I got stabbed in the gut with an ice pick. What am I going to focus on? Oh, the things I need to get done today. No, I'm not. And the brain
Right.
doesn't distinguish physical pain from emotional pain. So if Dr. Corey stabs me in the gut with an ice pick and goes, okay, Glenn, get productive. I'm like, what do you mean get productive? You just stabbed me in the stomach with an
Right.
ice pick. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. Come on, be productive. I can't. I'm so overwhelmed with the pain, with the bleeding.
Yeah.
And most people, certainly in their marriages and in their families and most of their relationships, are bleeding out. And we're
Mhm.
expecting them to be productive. And they're operating at about a third of what they're actually capable of.
Right. And so then you're talking about also the importance of people recognizing this is not only imperative for my relationship, it's imperative for myself, because you
Yes.
just alluded to
Yes.
it as well, of the
Absolutely.
idea of how often do we actually step back and take
Wow.
stock of what's really going on with me?
Yeah.
What
Mhm.
do I really experience? Because my work has always been coming across the idea that anger is just a covering emotion. There's a
Mm.
whole lot more going on in there. So I like the
Mhm.
way these are broken down to
Mhm.
where I got to do some serious work to make it look at, okay, where am I lonely?
Yeah.
Because that's
Mhm.
the human condition too, right? There's loneliness built in there. If you got a biblical worldview, Adam was lonely,
Yeah.
right? That's
Mhm.
pre-fall. So hello, that's going to be something we all experience. But then fear, all those components, I think are important to look at. How am I taking stock of me? Because I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I spend an inordinate amount of time distracting myself from myself. Did I get you back now?
Yeah. I
Okay.
heard you say, I'm guilty of this too. And then you froze.
Oh, so I spend an inordinate amount of time distracting myself from myself,
Mm.
Mm.
and
Yeah.
so a lot of times I need the important moves of how do I become more aware of my presence, because that's what's impacting those around me, particularly those I care about.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. That's really good.
Okay, so how do people find you? Let's kind of you mentioned it already on the link that'll get you the information on the
Mm.
Yeah.
wheel.
Absolutely. Well, and the connectioncodes.co is our website. We have a book, we have master classes. We, love for people to download the wheel for free and then get the instructions of how to use it in the videos. There's other free videos. We have a podcast, lots of great free information out there that we want to share. And,
Mhm.
this is such a big life changer for us,
Mm.
and we want that. And it's the simple way to understand emotion. And of course our master classes break it down tremendously in how to really kind of go deeper into all the things and all the tools and how to really be good listeners. That's a whole
Mhm.
nother topic, and then we so quickly want to fix other, that we want to fix the other. We want to defend ourselves. We want to explain ourselves. And so to learn to what we call the ooh, the power of the ooh, is just to be an audible listener.
Mm.
And that works incredibly with your spouse, with your children, with your friends, your coworkers. And it's like, wow, that's a pretty simple thing to learn. But most of us were never taught that. And so we miss that. And, the power of all of this, that especially if you're faith based, is to realize God created us this way.
Mm.
It's a I always love to think of it as it's
Yeah.
his text messages to us, is these emotions. And we need to be tuning in, and we can swipe, we can just delete. But if we tune in, it's
Yeah.
the way God created our bodies to be. And that's how we clear out our limbic system. We're healthier. We are more, we're happier. We're more at peace. We love better. All those things when we are able to tune in to what is happening with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you guys so much for the work and just the backing of it. I'm in favor of what is in line with who we are and how we're made, because there's no sense trying to go against
Yeah.
the operating system.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
creates all kinds of other issues. So
Absolutely.
this has been fun. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. I love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.